Hello and welcome to the Fantasyland Basketball Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Mark Shorten. Thank you to everyone joining us on either YouTube or on the podcast. Big show. Obviously, we are coming off a week where not a lot happened in the world of basketball, which, to be honest, was a little bit hard to take, a little bit depressing. It was slow. Fortunately, had some NFL drafts and some EPL to keep me going, but it's nothing like basketball. So hopefully this podcast and this show will scratch that itch. We're talking point guard tiers. I'm going to go through and do the different tiering, how I see them whenever it comes to fantasy. Obviously, there is going to be people in here that you're going to disagree with. That's the whole point of it. And there's going to be people in here that you look at and you're like, that person is bona fide superstar. How could they not be in a certain tier? Fantasy is a little bit different. Just because they contribute in real life doesn't necessarily make them fantasy relevant or a fantasy superstar, and vice versa. They may be an absolute bona fide fantasy gun, but real life they might not be too much chops. So I'll get it cracking. How many tiers have I got here? I'll try and keep it somewhat. So I've got 6 tiers. The last couple are filled with scrubs, to be perfectly honest, and I'm not going to go too much into those ones, but I'm going to start with my first tier. So this is tier 1. These are the people who I think should be right at least top 10 fantasy at an absolute minimum across every single position. I've said it before, I think it is really important this year to get your assists and to get your guards early in this draft. There is a real big drop away, which I'll go through in a second. It's generally between what I've got here is probably 4 and 5, but we'll start with tier 1. So tier 1, we've got probably the people that you would expect. We've got Steph Curry, we've got Damian Lillard, and we've got James Harden. So the reason why I've got those 3 and I don't have others, because there are some people in there that aren't in there that you're probably thinking, I was going to take this person first overall or second overall, obviously talking Luka. So the reason why I've got Steph, Dame, and I've got James Harden is because they contribute really, really well across the board. Curry and Lillard have similar games, both really strong in free throws, both really strong in threes, both really strong in assists and points. Okay in steals, and they don't really turn the ball over all that much compared to other point guards. Curry is slightly better in field goal than Lillard, which is why I've got him slightly higher. I've got him at kind of the top of the top tier. There's obviously health that you've got to take into account with Curry as well, but I don't see that being a factor this year. James Harden, he's the next one in this tier because Harden is an absolute gun across the board. Yes, there is a little bit of concern with KD and Kyrie, but I think that James Harden is the point guard of that team. I think that he brings people into the game a lot more than Kyrie does, and I don't necessarily think we're not going to get Houston Harden sort of points and sort of volume, but he's going to get his. He's always going to get his, and if anything, I think that could be a bit of a boost to his assist numbers, which we saw towards the end of the year anyway. The reason why I've knocked him down a little bit is because he does have games where he turns the ball over a ton, and that can really hurt. We are talking 9 categories. Obviously, if you're playing in an 8 category league or you don't have turnovers as a category, for example, I've seen 9 category leagues where they've got offensive and defensive boards as an extra category. That's fine. To be honest, it's probably not the podcast for you then. But yes, James Harden is 3rd in that first tier. So tier 1, Curry, Lillard, and James Harden. Tier 2, the player that you probably expected to be in the first one is Luka Doncic. Luka Doncic is joined with Trae Young, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and another surprise would probably be my boy Fred VanVleet. So Luka's a stud. I'm a Dallas fan. I absolutely love watching him play. I love the fact that we've got him. Dallas has got him. When it comes to his ability to take on a game and carry the entire team, it's great. I don't necessarily think that yes, he does have some enormous counting stats, when it comes to fantasy, but he does definitely have some gaping holes within his fantasy skill set as well. Obviously, he's strong in field goal, which a little bit surprising given how many shots he puts up. Really strong in threes, really strong in boards, really strong in assists, and really strong in points. That's 5. So he's okay in steals. Like, he's not going to do too much for you, but he definitely does tank free throw, and he definitely does tank turnovers. So if he can get his free throw percentage strong, then he is going to be in that tier 1. He's going to be probably the best player in the fantasy game, but he currently doesn't. He gets to the line 7 shots a game, and he's only making it like 74%, which is tough. Those are numbers that are really tough to combat whenever it comes to trying to win that category. Yeah, he doesn't block. You'll notice that I haven't really spoken about blocks as a tanking, or threes, for example, as a tanking. The way that I look at tanking is what categories are going to make you go backwards. Obviously, you can't go backwards in counting stats, ones that obviously count up. You can go backwards in free throw, you can go backwards in field goal, and obviously turnovers is a negative category in itself. So those are the ones that I look at whenever it comes to the tanking standpoint. So no one player on this list is going to have he's going to have 4 tanking points, because in my eyes, those categories don't exist. Trae Young, he's the next player in tier 2. Free throw percentage, threes, assists, and points. Obviously all things that he's an absolute stud in. He's surprisingly okay in field goal. He's okay in steals as well. Again, he's not somebody who's going to set the world alight, but he certainly doesn't tank that area. And turnovers, he has some shockers. So that's why I've got him in there as well. Again, similar to Luka, he can absolutely turn the game on. He can carry you in 1 or 2 categories, but there is certain areas that he hasn't really picked it up in, steals being one of them, and he turns the ball over a lot, especially given his high assist rate as well. Both him and Luka are going to turn the ball over quite a bit. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Now, he is somebody who I could have potentially made the case to go into tier 1, just because he contributes across the board. So he's great in both percentages, both field goal and free throw. He shoots a couple of threes a game. He gets 6 assists a game and gets into your low 20s in points. All really good, all really consistent. He's not going to get you 12 assists a game. He's not going to get you 40 points. He's not going to shoot 10 threes for you, which is okay, but he is pretty damn consistent. He is okay in steals, which is an area that I think that he should be able to get a bit better in. He's actually pretty decent whenever it comes to blocks as well. So for a guard, he's just under a block per game, and he's pretty decent whenever it comes to rebounds as well. He does have a few turnovers, so he doesn't have the same sort of numbers as a Luka or a Trae or a Harden is going to have whenever it comes to turnovers, but in relation to his assist numbers, then they are pretty high. So he's going to get you just under 3 turnovers a game on 6 assists per game, which is a turnover ratio of 2 to 1, or 1 to 2, whichever way you want to look at it. Whereas the other guys are going to get you 3 or 4, potentially even 5, but they've obviously got the really high assist numbers to go with that. Fred VanVleet, he's the other one. Free throw, threes, assists, steals. I absolutely love his steal numbers, and points. He's okay. He's actually really pretty good whenever it comes to the turnover side. You're only going to get 2 turnovers a game from him, maybe a little bit more, and he's going to go for 7 assists, 8 assists per game. So he's somebody that I really, really like. I was going to put him in tier 1. I actually separated these 2 tiers because I thought having 7 players in the top tier was a little bit much, but I like all of these guys within the top 20. I think SGA inside top 20. I think Fred VanVleet inside the top 20 puts you in a really, really good starting point for your draft. Yes, you're going to turn heads. Yes, you're going to get people that think that you're being a bit foolish, but I think that it is a winning formula this year. I will go into it in a bit, but it drops off quick. Tier 3. Westbrook, LeBron, De'Aaron Fox, Kyrie Irving, Chris Paul, and LaMelo Ball. So there are some big names in here. Westbrook and LeBron. I think that those 2 guys are bona fide stars, obviously. They do tank it pretty hard whenever it comes to two of those categories, or two of those three categories that I mentioned before. So yeah, they're going to be pretty similar whenever it comes to field goal, to boards, to assists, to steals, to points. They're going to be okay with that. Look, LeBron's a bit better in threes than Westbrook. He's going to get some more blocks than Westbrook. Both of them tank free throw at pretty high volume, and both of them turn the ball over a ton. So it's going to be interesting to see how they play with each other this year. But I don't like those two inside the top 7 point guards that I've mentioned. De'Aaron Fox, I think he's really good. I think he's got a little bit of a way to go whenever it comes to his fantasy value. So he's really strong from a guard standpoint in field goal. He's really good whenever, obviously, when it comes to the counting stats of assists and steals, and he's pretty damn good whenever it comes to points. Doesn't really shoot too many threes, which is a warning sign for a guard side. He's okay with turnovers, but he tanks free throw hard as well. I think that if you're creating around a point guard team, and look, my strategy here of take your guards early because there's bigs later in the draft might not be for everybody. But if it is for you, then there are certain point guards that you need to have that, or you don't necessarily need to have if you are going to win that game. Those three guys, Westbrook, LeBron, and Fox, are guys who are going to really hurt your free throw percentage. The same reason why you wouldn't necessarily take Giannis for a free throw percentage build, or you wouldn't start off by taking a Rudy Gobert, or getting a, not that he's relevant now, but an Andre Drummond, because they're just going to hurt. So the next person that I've got, Kyrie Irving. Looking at the areas that he contributes in, looking at the areas where he will potentially win you games, it's across the board. If he stayed healthy and every single guard on this list played 80 games for the year, 70 last year, 80 odd this year, then Kyrie Irving would probably be the best player in the drafts. He'd be the best point guard, and I don't necessarily know if you can argue with that. He's got the upside of Steph Curry. He has got the field goal to go along with that. He is someone who does it all across the board, doesn't really turn the ball over as well. But the biggest issue with Kyrie Irving is his potential minutes, as well as any sort of a injury scare or him going walkabout and him disappearing on the team. If you're not concerned about that, Kyrie Irving is definitely somebody that you want to take early. If you think that this is the year that he's going to stick around, absolutely jump at Kyrie, because he's he's an absolute jet. So that's why I've got him in tier 3 as opposed to tier 1 or 2, just because those are concerns about what he did last year, what he did the year before that, him potentially shutting down whenever he's not happy with the team or the media or whatever. There are some really big red flags whenever it comes to Kyrie Irving. Chris Paul I've got next. Again, he's somebody who's an absolute weapon. I don't need to go too much into Chris Paul. What you do need to know about him is that he doesn't really turn the ball over, and he gets you some high assists. So again, if you can put up with the fact that he is an aging body, he has stayed relatively healthy the last 2 years against everybody's better judgment, take Chris Paul. And then finally, LaMelo. I think LaMelo is going to take another step this year. He has already been really good in threes, assists, steals. He's been pretty good whenever it comes to boards and both percentages, which was a bit of a surprise. He does turn the ball over a bit, but again, we're going into the second year of this guy, and he is going to have another season playing with his team. He has got a better center. He's got a better team around him now, a team that is going to make more shots than what they did last year. So I think his assist numbers definitely could increase as well. So Westbrook, LeBron, Fox, Irving, Chris Paul, and LaMelo Ball, that rounds out tier 3. Tier 4, so this is where it starts to get a little bit iffy. So Donovan Mitchell, Drew Holiday, Devin Booker, Malcolm Brogdon, Ja Morant, Ben Simmons, and Kyle Lowry. So if you're in your draft and you haven't got any of the players that I've previously mentioned, anyone in those tier 1, 2s, and 3s, then I would start to worry, and you might need to reach for some of these guys. But these are the guys that you're probably going to be looking at in the late 30s, early 40s to 60 range. So you're probably thinking Donovan Mitchell, Devin Booker, Ja Morant, Ben Simmons are probably all going to be gone at that stage. That's okay. If they slip, this is the point to take them. I don't necessarily think you should reach for these guys before that. So Donovan Mitchell, for example, yes, he is great whenever it comes to free throw percentage, threes, and points. Really, really good. No issues there. He is okay. So last year he had a career high in assists at 5.2. He's okay with a steal per game, and he's okay with like 45% shooting. He does also get you nearly 2.5 turnovers a game. So 2.5 turnovers compared to 5, a career high in 5 assists per game, is concerning. So I think that Donovan Mitchell is probably going to take another step up whenever it comes to points and threes and getting to line and all that sort of stuff. But I think Mike Conley is going to run the offense again, and I think that he is somebody that I would be a little bit concerned about reaching too early for, because the way I see him and the way I see Devin Booker, if I can jump to him, is the same. Okay with assists, turn the ball over a lot compared to their assists, decent percentages, decent points. That's about it. Nothing on the defensive end. You can get those players later in your draft. I made a mistake last year of reaching for Devin Booker. In a lot of leagues, I've made the mistake in reaching for Donovan Mitchell in one of my leagues, and I really wasn't happy with it. Like, as soon as I clicked the button, I thought, I made a mistake here. I jumped the gun because I was concerned about missing out on a point guard. Point guard's been flying off the board, and it was a mistake. And I had to live with it throughout the year because I wasn't willing to accept a trade for their actual value whenever I paid over that value, if that makes sense. So just be wary whenever it comes to those point-heavy guards that don't assist. You can get points later. You can get my favourite person to throw in there, you can get a Norman Powell later, going to get you 20 points a game. Not going to get you much more than that, but that'll cover that sort of gap that you maybe miss out on without taking a Booker or a Mitchell. Jrue Holiday, I really love him here. If he's somebody that I'm probably going to reach for anyway, just because he's just an absolute stud whenever it comes to field goal. He's going to make them at 50% over the course of the year, and he's really consistent with that as well. 7 assists per game, nearly 2 steals per game. He's okay with threes. He's not great at the line, but he doesn't really turn the ball over either. So Jrue Holiday is another person I love. Malcolm Brogdon, again in tier 4, free throw, threes, points, assists, okay in field goal, and okay in turnovers. The biggest concern here is health, and the biggest concern here is Domantas Sabonis taking another step in his career as well. So I would be a little bit concerned about Brogdon. I think that he played out of his skin last year before he got injured. So I think a bit of a regress to the mean here is on the cards. Ja Morant, I don't love him, to be honest. A lot of people reach for him because he's a sexy player to watch. He is somebody who lights it up and can light up on the highlight reel. But for me, he only really contributes in assists, and he's pretty average with everything else. So he's not going to, he's probably last year, I think he started with like a 40-point game. Probably going to do it again this year. He can do that, but over the course of the season, he's going to have stinkers. He is okay from the field. He's okay from the line. Doesn't shoot a lot of threes. Doesn't steal the ball. Doesn't block. And he tanks whenever it comes to turnovers. So be mindful of Ja Morant. Let him slide down the boards if you can. Ben Simmons, he has copped an absolute barrage from the media, from teammates, and from his coach and everything in the offseason or since the postseason finished. And justifiable the way he played in the playoffs, but from a fantasy standpoint, that could mean that he slips, which is great news for us. Field goal, boards, assists, and steals. He's okay whenever it comes to a block as well. He does tank free throw. He does tank turnovers. But if you need a steals and assist sort of guy, Ben Simmons in this 4th tier is a really good shout. And closing out the 4th tier, we've got Kyle Lowry. So Kyle Lowry has moved homes. He's now in Miami, I'm pretty sure. He is really strong whenever it comes to getting to the line and making shots at the line. 3-pointers, he is probably going to lead their team. I know they got Duncan Robinson, but I don't really care for him. Kyle Lowry is going to lead the team when it comes to that. Assists and steals, really, really strong. He doesn't turn the ball over a lot either. You're probably seeing a little bit of a trend here in those older point guards, those point guards who have been around the league for a lot of time. Those guards who look as though they've got a lot of time on the ball tend to be the ones who turn the ball over less. So Lowry's another one for that. He's okay when it comes to points. He does shoot the ball horribly though. He does tank whenever it comes to field goal. So again, Mitchell, Drew, Booker, Brogdon, Ja Morant, Ben Simmons, and Kyle Lowry. That rounds out my tier 4. And then this is where, if you haven't got a point guard by this point, then just pack it in. Don't worry about going for those guard stats because there's no real point. This is where we really start to pick up the scraps. So tier 5, going to be a long list here. So we've got Kemba Walker, we've got Lonzo Ball, Spencer Dinwiddie. Those are probably, and Terry Rozier, maybe Devontae Graham, are the ones that I'd be looking at in this group. Kemba, you know my thoughts on Kemba. His body's let him down, but he can still produce. Lonzo, in a new home, I think he will be able to produce as well. Spencer Dinwiddie, he's going to put up some big numbers, but the percentages and the turnovers are going to hurt there. Rozier coming off a big year. I think there's a bit of a regress to the mean. And Devontae Graham, again, similar to Dinwiddie, could put up big numbers, but will hurt you on percentages. You've got Colin Sexton, you've got Darius Garland. Be interesting to see how those two go. Cade Cunningham, I think he has the potential to be a tier 3 type guy this year, but there is concerns over the fact that it is his first season in the league. DeJounte Murray, I love him, but I think that there is concerns over his rounded out game. He doesn't assist a lot for a point guard. He's probably one of those guys who you pick up if you need steals later in the draft. Dennis Schroeder, I have nothing to say about Dennis Schroeder. Or I have nothing nice to say about Dennis Schroeder. Mike Conley, D'Angelo Russell, Jalen Suggs, Jamal Murray. I don't know his ETA. He's not somebody that I'm going to be drafting because I'm pretty sure he's out for the entire year, but I don't 100% know that. Tyrese Halliburton, Derek White, Marcus Smart, and Kevin Porter Jr. So that's a long list. Obviously, if you're watching it on YouTube, you can see the list next to me. There's a lot of players on there, and there's someone there that you're thinking D'Angelo Russell probably should be higher. Your Kembas, your Lonzos should be higher. And then you're maybe looking at it and you go, Dennis Schroeder should be lower. You look at it and you go, Colin Sexton, Darius Garland should be lower. Marcus Smart should be lower. This is the way that I see it in terms of return on investment, and if you need to get a point guard for those guard stats. So those are the guys that I like in this area. And then finally, tier 6, we're looking at Derrick Rose, we're looking at DeLon Wright, who I think has got some sleeper value. You've got TJ McConnell, you've got Kobe White, which just hurts me to say. You've got Markelle Fultz, you've got Goran Dragic, you've got Cole Anthony, you've got Tyler Hero, you've got Seth Curry, Eric Bledsoe, and Ricky Rubio. So those last two players are in new homes. Eric Bledsoe, he is in LA, I think. I think he's at the Clippers after bouncing from, I want to say, New Orleans to Memphis and then to the Clippers. All likelihood is that Kawhi Leonard misses the entire year. There is a little bit of value there to be had for Bledsoe, but I don't think that he is anybody worth reaching for unless it's like a real late pick. He is somebody to watch, but I don't necessarily think that he's somebody that's going to put up value. And then Ricky Rubio, he's now in Cleveland, so he's going to potentially come off the bench behind Colin Sexton, Darius Garland. They've also got Isaac Okoro there, so again, not somebody who has produced with minutes. He's somebody I took last year because I was desperate for guard stats because I didn't get my point guards early, and it burnt me because he was coming off the bench and didn't have the minutes. So what I have to say, I've said it all along, get your guards early. If you're in a league with me, get your guards late so that I can get mine early. But if you're not in a league with me, get your guards early because those stats drop off after the first 15 20 guards. And then those last ones that I mentioned, you're not winning a league if those are your best point guards. So that's about all from me. If you've got any questions, shoot us a message, or add us on any of the socials, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, for any more information. Draft guide is on its way. I'm working on that, and I do have a couple of open spots in a couple of ESPN fantasy leagues. So if you are interested, let me know. But until next time, don't forget to rate and subscribe.